What makes the gun different is that it actually can do the things that we say it does.
I'm confident if you put it in anyone's hands and say put it up against any rifle out there in the market and objectively test it on any metric that you think is important, and I guarantee it will outperform.
Despite how many gun companies have popped up, like 95% of the rifles on the market would not meet the bare minimum standard for a work rifle.
Like, we're out there shooting with these guys who are shooting Accuracy International bolt guns, and we're keeping up.
So to ask now if the civilian gets the same quality of rifle that the government does, well, the government's getting the same quality of rifle that the civilian gets.
This is life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness.
This wasn't Mike's idea, like this is just my ancestor Thomas Jefferson of the original Sons of Liberty. This was his idea.
I think about Sons of Liberty as very much being, hey, these are the principles upon which our country was founded.
I mean, first and foremost, what we want to be known by is the world's finest fighting rifles.
Mike, Nate, Sons of Liberty Gunworks, welcome back to Whiskey and Windage, gentlemen. We appreciate you. How's it going?
Matt, it's going great. Mike, good to see you. Thanks for having us. Really, real pleasure to be here. Great to be back on the show and flying a new flag for me, at least one that Mike designed and built from the ground up. So I'm glad that he's here with me.
Yeah, Mike, first time for you, man. How are you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing great. Been looking forward to this, man. I watch y'all stuff. I'm a big fan, and it's cool to finally be on.
Man, he's our third listener, Matt. It's your mom, my mom, and it's Mike.
Hey, look, at least outside of our moms, we got some industry giants that watch. So
they're all three equally pretty. So
I love all
them.
three of them. Well, again, gentlemen, we want to welcome you to Whiskey and Windage, and we're gonna get it popping right off with Ask AI. It's kind of a newer segment for us, but we like to ask AI about our guests. So we asked AI about Sons of Liberty Gunworks. This week's segment of Ask AI is brought to you by our friends over at Tipton.
Your workspace matters, and the Tipton Best Gun Vise 360 doesn't play around. Built for serious shooters, this vise locks down rifles, shotguns, and ARs with zero movement and full control. Tool-free adjustments, rock-solid clamping, and a 360-degree rotating cradle give you access from every angle. No shortcuts, no compromises. Whether you're building, cleaning, or dialing in, this vise was made to keep up. Tipton Best Gun Vise 360. Built to hold, built to work.
It says Sons of Liberty Gunworks, often referred to as SOLGW, is a premium American firearms manufacturer based in San Antonio, Texas. They specialize in high-quality AR platform rifles, components, and accessories, earning a solid reputation for precision engineering and mission-crucial reliability. What do you guys think? Did AI nail it? Was there anything missing? What else did you want to hear from AI?
Nate, I'll let you go first, man.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, as the new guy, not a bad summary from my perspective. There's nothing inaccurate, right, in there. You can always go a layer deeper. But no, I thought that was pretty good, pretty solid.
Mike, was there anything you'd want to add, or what do you think?
I mean, first and foremost, what we want to be known by is the world's finest fighting rifles. We want to be known by the quality of our product, by the performance of the product. That is first and foremost, right? But the Second Amendment, like advocacy and kind of our position on just like true American values, like that's I think that does differentiate us as a company, a little bit, in that we're not afraid to lean into what we do. We build fighting rifles, and we build fighting rifles for Americans, man, and that's we lean into that as opposed to trying to church it up or clean it up with a modern sporting rifle. I don't know what that is, man. We build fighting rifles.
You said the objective was to build quality fighting rifles. What mattered the most to you when you started out? Like when you had this idea, this brainchild, like talk about that process and what your goals were when you first set them starting out.
I mean, in 2012 in my garage, if you go back in time, like if you go back and look at the AR market back there, there was not a ton of really good rifles. I mean, you started, you had Noveski, you had BCM, obviously you had Knights. Off the top of my head, the Colt 6920 was the yardstick of guns, right? I think that everything could be compared to being better or worse than a Colt 6920. And but and this is still true today. Despite how many gun companies have popped up, like 95% of the rifles on the market would not meet the bare minimum standard for a work rifle. They just wouldn't. They would not survive the firing schedules. They would not be able to survive, environmentals or some of the other kind of stressors you would put on a gun. And so understanding like what the performance metrics should be, I wanted to build rifles that exceeded that, but to couple that with like concierge level end user support, which the gun industry is not necessarily known for super good customer support. I mean, if you were to walk into any other kind of store, I mean, or I shouldn't say that, for the brick and mortar stores that we deal with do compete on that kind of service. They do have concierge level service, and that's why we're putting so much focus on them. But as far as the manufacturers themselves, it's just people that are really good at building guns aren't necessarily really good at interfacing with customers, man, or building those kinds of relationships. Yeah. And I never wanted it to be transactional. I wanted to build something where we had a community. I wanted the company to actually be like a cause in a community built around what the rifle was for. That was defense. But, and so that was the goal. I mean, high performing rifles with concierge level support and a community built around like a common belief system. Last night about 9:30, I got a phone call from someone I've never met. Got my phone number off the internet. The only part of his rifle that had a Sons Liberty component was the bolt carrier group. That was it. That's the only thing in his rifle was a bolt carrier group. And he called me to diagnose a barrel extension problem on a gun that we did not build, on parts we didn't sell. And I sat on the phone with the guy for 30 minutes. And I'll be honest with you, man, like, believe it or not, that is still one of my favorite parts of my job. Arguing with the freight company, that's not a lot of fun, or, there's a lot of other aspects of it that are not fun, but talking to people and helping them out. And I mean, one bolt carrier group, that was all. And, we sat on the phone. And so that I don't ever want to lose that.
Mike, tell us about the name Sons of Liberty. Tell us why that was important to you, and why the original militia of the U.S. was chosen to represent you and your company.
Yeah. So, I mean, historically, the Sons of Liberty, like Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, right? You're talking about, I think, some of the greatest minds in human history, especially on governance, right? And I believe that like the politics has driven us so far away from like the original intent of like the Constitution and the original intent of the founders. And to me, I wanted to put more of like an emphasis on that, especially being that I wanted to start a gun company, and it being the Second Amendment, it was important enough to them to include it right after speech. And so I thought it was appropriate. Then you have to remember, at the time that I stood Sons Liberty up, this was after like the Sandy Hook shooting, and that was whenever it was in that period of time where you really started to see a concerted crackdown on guns, gun culture. It started to be driven into a bit more taboo. You started seeing financial institutions changing their position on things. Words started to get, language changed. That was a really, in my opinion, a transformative time for the country. I don't think in fact, I would argue that it's only gotten progressively worse since then, right? But it started, that's where Operation Choke Point and stuff started, right? Was after that. And so to me, like, naming the company was, in that time, and for what the company was, the intent of it made a lot of sense. Now, looking back years later, in that we're in multiple countries. I think we're in 14 countries right now. We're in all 50 states. We have, we won, I think, one of the most prestigious DoD contracts in the world, or military contracts in the world. We're in hundreds of law enforcement agencies. Looking back, I mean, I couldn't picture that from my garage, and I was, I mean, like that wasn't never even crossed my mind.
On radar.
Yeah, right. No, with that, like,
it'd be nice to have a store one day.
Well, what I'm getting at, though, is that, like, even something as simple as having the word gun in the name, it got us, like, at the time I was using, like, I think it was Square and PayPal for some of these transactions out of my garage, that went away pretty quick. I mean, but I couldn't foresee the success of the company, and I damn sure couldn't foresee the I guess the how that tone would change to where there was an overt hostility to people who embrace this belief system, which is, I thought was mainstream core America.
When precision matters, trust the tool that delivers. The Wheeler Pro Series 100-piece fat wrench kit brings unmatched control to your bench. With torque you can trust and 100 purpose-built bits, it's the all-in-one answer for gunsmiths, builders, and perfectionists. Whether you're mounting optics or dialing in fine details, this kit hits every mark. Clean, confident, repeatable. No guesswork, no strip screws. Just pro-level performance in your hands. Upgrade your bench with Wheeler Tools.
If you are reloading, you need tools that work as hard as you do. And that's exactly what you get with Frankfurt Arsenal. Their top-of-the-line reloading equipment, including case cleaners, powder dispensers, and presses, are designed for precision and efficiency. Whether you're a competitive shooter or a weekend reloader, Frankfurt Arsenal helps you save time and get more consistent, high-performance rounds. Reload smarter. Reload with Frankfurt Arsenal, because your ammo deserves the best.
No, I'm with you there. So I'm glad you said that, because you were talking about some of your core values starting and getting it going. So let's go ahead and rewind back. Let's go back to 2012. How do you feel your goals were met, exceeds, or less than satisfactory when it comes to the original game plan?
I mean, I remember every milestone, like every milestone. I mean, I remember the first time that I sold a rifle to someone I didn't personally know, or did not know somebody who knew me, right? That to me was a milestone. I remember the very first online order that, we came into the shop and, like, hit print, and, like, someone from the internet bought a gun from us, like, I'll never forget that. It was, like, startling, I'll never forget, like, the first. Right now, I'll be honest, if I could find those first 10 rifles that actually left Sons of Liberty, I'm not talking about Mike's garage, I'm talking about, once we actually had formed a company and gotten an FFL, it's a whole other story in and of itself. The first ones, the ATF weren't so excited about, but they got over it, they're cool. Or I shouldn't say, they got over it.
Cool-ish.
Yeah, well, I mean, they didn't shoot my dog, right? So, but I mean, if I could find those first 10 guns, I'd probably trade Mark 1s to get those first 10 guns back, But to your point, to your question, every night I would pack up the orders that we had, and I would put them in my car, and I would drive them to the post office, the airport post office, because they were open until 9 o'clock at night, so I can get people's orders out. And I remember seeing, like, it going from a tote, to, like, needing, like, to go borrow that cart with wheels, to, like, the bed of my truck. And then now we see, routinely, daily, we see forklifts loading pallets onto, trucks every day. You can't, like, at least for me, I didn't know what busy looked like. And I have a feeling, especially with the help of Nate and like some of the other things we're working towards and we've recently accomplished. If you ask me that same question, 10 years from now, if you asked me if I could have pictured where we're going to be 10 years from now, like today, I don't think you can, because I mean you're kind of always shooting at like that 7 meter target, right? Like I mean you're trying to accomplish the next thing right in front of you. Nate now has, I think, a little bit bigger long term vision for things, or for trajectory and direction. But for me, I'm trying to win that next deal. I'm trying to crush that next milestone in weapon development. I'm trying to get barrels to last, longer. I'm trying to get weapons to be lighter, stronger, faster, handle higher pressure ammunition. You're focused on these things that are kind of like right in front of you, and it's not until you look backwards you see how far you came. And no, you can't picture it looking forward. Now, maybe someone like Nate can, that has more of like that a plan. I didn't have a plan. I just wanted to crush the next thing in front of me. That's it,
Yeah. Well, something I've learned, and I without serving in the military, I can only relate to. I'm ground force, and he's like AC 130. He's got a special knack for seeing the bigger picture, and that's why he's the AC 130 in my mind.
I've said this a million times. I feel like I got the first pick in like the NFL draft or something, dude. I mean, it's awesome that there is. I can say it's Nate. Cover your ears. I don't want you to. But I mean, I can honestly say I do not think that there is a more qualified person in this space that understands business and understands firearms and understands the culture, and it has those same core beliefs. I don't think there's anybody in this space that is better. I mean that sincerely. I don't think people don't have to take my word for it. Meet Nate. Look at the stuff that he's built.
Nate, let's talk about that acquisition a little bit. When you left your previous position, what were some of the requirements for what you were looking for next? I mean, you talked with us briefly, like kind of in between that transition, and what were you looking for, and how did that lead you here to Sons?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And first of all, thank you for all those undue compliments.
Yeah, we're editing that out.
Yeah,
we're not
he's tall, he's handsome, he's smart, and he's humble. Okay, all right.
Cut. The bar is already high. Now it's just been raised, so I've got to go execute, meet expectations, hopefully exceed them. But yeah, I mean, you guys, Matt and Mike Perkins have, to me at least, I think about you guys as friends.
Yeah.
And we've kind of, we started with a podcast, and then we got to spend some time together, shooting in a few different venues. And for whatever reason, we kind of have clicked a little bit. And
you fed us. We're not leaving.
Yeah. Don't feed the animals.
Well, that's, that's actually the most important thing for me. And it's gotten more important to me as I've gotten older and learned more and seen more and had a chance to work with in a lot of different environments with a lot of different teams. People is number one. People and culture are the most important thing. And so whatever I was going to go do, that the people involved, the people who I'm working for and the people who I'm working with we have to be aligned. I have to feel a level of trust, and to build that, and I want to build something great with partners. And so to me, that was, regardless of what it was going to start with people and culture. And I had gotten to know Mike a little bit for, I guess maybe I've probably known Mike now for about 2 years. And we connected initially because we were both, running businesses in Texas, building great products. and I would, show, hey, Mike, kind of check out this cool thing, and you shoot this, and he'd be like, well, you check out this cool thing, and you shoot this, and so we would shoot each other's products, and I started shooting one of his rifles, and got to know the quality of the build and everything else. But more importantly, I got to know Mike a little bit as a person, and I really was drawn to him because he's got something that many entrepreneurs have, which is incredible passion, for what they're doing. But on top of that, he's got something that many entrepreneurs don't have, which is he cares deeply about the customer, about the end customer. So much so, he really sets the standard, and it's a standard we need to figure out how to get this across the Suns ecosystem, because we're not there yet. I will tell you that our customer service, Mike's great. We all need work to kind of meet the Mike standard, where at 9:30 at night on a Saturday night, he's going to pick up the phone call from a number he has never seen before and have a conversation with a guy he's never met about a rifle that he didn't build, simply because the guy bought a bolt carrier group at some point in time. And which is amazing, right? And that is not an unusual story. Literally 2 weeks ago at the shop, we had a San Antonio police officer come in, and I was sitting in the tavern with Mike and another guy. We were talking, and I saw this guy come in, and so I went over to introduce myself, and he's like, "Hey, I'm having some problems with my rifle," and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh shit, what's wrong?" We go inside. He's like, I'm like, well, so he's like, well, it's not a Suns rifle, and he's like, but I bought some parts from you guys like 5 years ago, and you set it up for me, and you got it running really great, and I really love it, and now X, Y, and Z is not working. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, no problem. Anyway, we got one of the armorers out. They took care of him, and he's like, yeah, maybe I'm ready to buy one of your rifles. I said, yeah, we're ready for you. We're here when you're ready. Not everybody can afford, a Suns complete build, but people were number one. Kind of bringing this back full circle. The most important thing I was looking for were people that I aligned with, that I wanted to work with, that I felt like I could build something together with. And Mike fit all of those. And so that was the single most important consideration, that was out there, was the people piece. The second one, I'll just give you the kind of three that I always look at. The second one, I'll try not to be too long-winded, but the second one is mission and values. Like, I never want to work in a business that doesn't have purpose and doesn't have a mission that aligns with my personal philosophy and what I want to do. And so with Mike and Sons of Liberty, I think about Sons of Liberty as very much being, hey, these are the principles upon which our country was founded. Mike is arming the republic. This is life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. These are foundational rights that I believe every human being has. And Mike feels so strongly about that, and that's what we do. And we lean into that both on the civilian side of the market and also on the military and law enforcement side of the market. We serve both of those markets, with equity, right? We want everybody who's, can be legally armed to be legally armed with the absolute world's finest fighting rifle. So that was number two, kind of having this purpose that I could get into, align with, and it gets me excited about going to work every single day. So that's number two. The third one for me is, and it's always, does this business have the opportunity to be one of the best in the world? Like, can we be the best at what we do? If we can't be the best at what we do, or don't believe that we can, I don't want to be involved. I want to be working in businesses where we are aspiring to being the absolute best at what we do. And so those three things kind of all fit together. And initially Mike kind of danced around a little bit. We had a couple of breakfasts. He's like, hey, how you doing? I could use some help, this thing, or we're growing it, but I really would love to have somebody, a partner, to help me take it to the next level. And I'm sitting there having breakfast. Yeah, Mike, that sounds great. And eventually I kind of got the clue. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm in. I'm 100% in all the way.
So I do want to say that, first off, you said a lot of stuff there. Let me dissect. The first thing you said was you were talking about our friendships, and yeah, we look at you more as a friend, not not a peer or a colleague. We are both of those, but at the same time, Matt and I both agree we're friends first. I'm not going to let some insider information out, but excuse me, when we've had many of our talks, and I remember like vividly, we were talking and you were talking about, yeah, I've got this offer and it's for a black rifle company and I'm weighing out my options. And you were trying to stay even keel with it when you were explaining to me. You wouldn't say what it was, and I respect your professionalism, but you were trying to stay even keel and talk about, black rifles are the, that's what the media crucifies, all of those things. But even in that conversation, you could see the glow on your face. And it was like, immediately I was like, holy shit. Like, I just want to know who it is, because you were so excited. So to hear that you landed at Sons of Liberty, and that was the root of all of the excitement, and that was the root of all of the enthusiasm. It was refreshing to see that you were going with, I don't want to discount Sons by saying, small town, small business, because San Antonio is not small and the firearms business is small, but relatively Sons has paved its own way, and it has become, I misspoke. It has become a quality rifle. Last time we spoke, and this will probably be a Mike question. Last time we spoke with Sons, it was the standard procedure with QC that there were a few people designated as QC that were armors as well. And so people would build their rifles, and once it was done, one of the designated people would QC that work to make sure that everything was as it should be. Is that still the standard?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's actually a lot to unpack there. So let me, I'd like to answer this, comprehensively, So what's Sons Liberty has a unique trajectory in that we did not start out in like the going after defense contracts. We did not start out necessarily pursuing, government work. I started Sons Liberty to provide what I believe to be the best, endurance, like an endurance-driven, reliable rifle, a rifle that would go bang every single time with boring predictability. And my client in my head when I started the company was a dad protecting his house, and so so that in my mind, the most important round ever fired in history might be that dad, defending his home in that moment, right? So the idea of the government side, that was not the original intent. To bring that back to your question, and the trajectory of the company, we built such a good rifle. We built such a good rifle for the commercial market that the professionals took notice, and they contacted us. Not one time did we ever go and solicit any kind of military or some of these big government contracts. We never went to ISOF, we never went to Soft Week, we never went to some of those kinds of shows and stuff that were geared towards that. I'm proud to say that certain clients came looking for us because of the quality of our work. So to ask now if the civilian gets the same quality of rifle that the government does, well, the government's getting the same quality of rifle that the civilian did. That's actually the and remember, the ethos of the company, being Sons of Liberty Gunworks, was that I inherently believe that the American citizen should have the same exact weapons as the government, as per the founder's intent. This wasn't Mike's idea, this is just my ancestor Thomas Jefferson of the original Sons of Liberty. This was his idea, and so that's so yes, the commercial rifles we sell have every bit of the same QC and attention to detail as any of the professional rifles leaving the shop. Now, to elaborate on the QC process, yes, an armorer builds a rifle from start to finish, and then a second person. We don't allow people to inspect their own work. There's redundancy built in, but that's the very end of it. Okay, like you have to remember that when you're doing, you're examining prints, prints for something that you're about to have machined. Like it starts there. Here's what a lot of people don't know about Sons of Liberty. There's a myth out there, and I'd like to actually talk more about this later on. But there's a misconception. If you read Reddit or some of these other places, that we're an assembler. I can tell you right now that I have the material certs from the steel mills that we import, like our Armod from, to where the actual raw material is inspected and must meet a standard before we will accept it. And that's the same thing with all the raw materials that even go in. It isn't like we're buying something off the shelf and slapping our logo on it. I mean, the raw material must meet the standard. And then it comes in, once that part is made or whatever, and it comes into the shop, there's an entire process to even receive that. Our interns, and this is like an initiation to even come to Sons of Liberty, our interns sit there and weigh buffers on a postal scale. Because a human assembled it, and just because it says H2 on the face of the buffer doesn't mean that maybe that guy, had a rough night the night before, right? So each buffer is weighed. I mean, you're talking about using different. We use SOTAR gauges for every carrier to check bolt tail run, efficiency, keys, gas ports, chambers. I mean, all that stuff happens before that part even gets to an armorer's bench. So the level of QC and the filter that we have to even get to the armorer's bench, to get to the secondary inspection, is insane. And if people saw it, they'd have a very different appreciation of what a Sons of Liberty rifle or component is. I mean, it is obsessive to the point towards detrimental almost to the bottom line. And what's awesome is having a CEO like Nate that allows us to keep our obsessiveness, in the sense where, like, a part that's received might take a week to get to the bench to be built, but we're not going to compromise on making sure that there's perfect efficiency in that part. So yeah.
I think it's.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go off, dude.
No, that was great.
Because I think it's entrepreneurship 101. And I think where the Reddit people, and you can definitely interject and correct me where I'm wrong, but I think the difference of, I'm just going to call it Sons of Liberty 2.0 right now, from where Sons of Liberty 2.0 is versus where Sons of Liberty 1.0 was in Mike's garage. Yeah, at that point, you had to, it's not just getting on your distributor and buying some damn bolt carriers and barrels and things. You're vetting, you're checking tolerances, you're doing things, because that's what all small businesses do. If you're listening to this show and you're part of the industry and you've never been to the Top Floor at SHOT Show, I recommend you go, because there are lots of people. If I was going to start a pistol, a rifle, a PCC, you name it, if I was going to start a company right now, my first stop is the Top Floor at SHOT Show, because I'm going to find people that make quality parts that I can source from to get started. But like, that's not the end game. That's to get my foot in the door. And then it's, how can I start making some of these parts myself, with the goal of making almost all, if not all, of the parts in-house. But my point being is that all small businesses, or all businesses in general, even the giants, even like Ford Motor Company, even all of these people, it all starts with, I'm getting somebody to make this part for me, somebody to make that part for me, but they are meeting my specifications. And I have the full intent that the moment I can purchase a machine to replace that, I'm going to do that. Am I out of line saying that?
Let me just jump in on this one, Mike. That's a really good analogy. The automotive industry, right? Because they're doing design engineering, right? So they've designed a vehicle, they've designed all the parts, they've spec'd it in terms of materials that are going to be, what material is going to be made out of, what are the tolerances it's going to be made to, because there are folks who are experts at making shocks, as an example, right? There are folks who are very good at making brakes and brake systems. And so you can go in, when you take that approach, you can go to the very best, or you have a choice to go to someone to get your shocks from, someone to get your brakes from, someone who's very, very good. Now, when you're assembling your car or your rifle, you're looking at all those things and you're going through and you're saying, okay, well, what matters? What matters to make this the world's finest fighting rifle? It has to feed, it has to eject, it has to do that reliably over and over and over again with lots of different types of ammunition. It has to do that suppressed, it has to do that unsuppressed. So things like gas systems start to matter a lot. Things like the tolerances on a gas port and a barrel start to matter a lot. Things like, things on your gas block tolerances start to matter a lot. Your gas tube. So all these different tolerances that come into play. And over time, Mike's learned a lot about how those systems interact and work together. And it said, okay, I want to have the barrel have this profile. Here's what the barrel profile is. Here's the rifling technology that we're going to use in this barrel. Here's how we're going to get it coated. Here's the barrel extension that's going to be used. Here's how it's going to be put together entirely. And then, it's all proprietary and driven by Sun's prints and design engineering. And so that's where we are today.
So everything that Nate said is spot on, and your insight is correct. The only thing that I would add is that, like, the term mil-spec is the most bastardized term in the industry, and very few people actually understand what mil-spec truly means. And
bare minimum.
Well, that's just it, though. But I'm telling you, 95% of the rifles and components on the commercial market today would not meet the military basic standard. It would not. Materially, the processes, the testing, the tolerances, the techniques involved. I could take 10 bolt carrier groups that look cosmetically identical, okay, and lay them on a table. And this is the problem with, I guess, reading comments or I guess listening to how the gun industry is discussed amongst people. The number one problem is the lack of understanding of what those materials and tolerances and processes and stuff are. Most guns on the market are built for margin. They're not built for performance. And materials matter. The kind of testing you're subjecting that material to matter. So even when we were sourcing parts, if you had a choice to source from company A through company Z, and if you think they're all the same, okay, and even within company A, if you think that the menu options that they're offering are all the same, you'd be wrong. So you have to know kind of where to even begin to source. And then once you find that, kind of a good manufacturing partner, you have to deep dive their own menu. And if there's a checkbox of 50 things on there, even companies that source it from the same OEM might check 3 of those boxes, and then there's a company that will check all 50. All right. And so just because you might know where something might have been made, that is maybe 10% of what you know about the product or the part. Just because you know where it came from, that's probably 10% of what the story of that component is. And if we had 10 hours to explain it, I would love to. This is where, the people that understand what I'm saying, or the people that are interested in what I'm saying, already probably know this. The other majority, anyways, it's been a source of frustration for me for a long time. Because I don't think that I don't think people can tell you the difference between detents.
They don't.
Well, I will say, Mike, something when we started our podcast, when we started 2 years ago, I've grown up around guns. I love guns. I wasn't fixated on anything other than the fact of I'm going to pull the trigger. It's going to go bang. And this is fun. Starting this podcast, we wanted to reach out and actually touch base with the people and put names and faces to the brands and get that human connection. And I'm going to bring up another company because they're defunct now, but, talking with people over at Anderson. Great people. I'm not going to get into their firearms. I'm just going to say great people. But getting that opportunity to look behind the curtain and see who else they made products for really plays into what you were just saying. And lots of people just buy in to the role mark. And I'm not discounting the angry patriot, but you've got an angry patriot, you've got an Iron Cross, you've got a knight, you've got all sorts of different people, and I'm not talking about those guys. But what I do want to say is there were other people like Anderson Manufacturing that were making parts for other people that their roll marks were applied, and people thought that was the best thing since sliced bread, and they had no clue that it was made in Kentucky at the same plant that they were bashing. So there's lots of companies out there that don't meet your standard, don't meet the standard. If we were to take the Angry Patriot, if we were to take all the box art, take all the advertising out, what makes a Sons of Liberty gun different than the competition?
That's a great question. I mean, it really does start out with a performance metric, a performance standard, right? So what do you want this gun to do? Like that's what it starts at. And then you work that backwards. Okay, well, how do you get the achieved goal? Like, how do you get the desired result? You want a gun that runs, that's unstoppable in negative 40 degrees, under, these conditions, or that will continue to group under intense heat, or blah, 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 or whatever that is. And you can really boil that down into very fundamental things that the gun should be able to do. Without getting into the weeds, I mean, just looking at how a rifle would feed. Anyways, let me. I don't want to get too far into things, but a wave top answer of the question, I suppose. What makes the gun different is that it actually can do the things that we say it does, and the things that we say it can do is pretty bold. We're making pretty bold performance claims, and the gun can actually do it. And then, without any kind of without any kind of identifiable roll mark on the gun, if somebody who knew what they were looking at went through that gun and they saw the way that castlements were actually staked in multiple places to the correct depth, if they saw the weight in the buffers, if they saw the types of springs that were used, if they look at the actual materials of a mag button, or you look at like how a gas block fits onto the journal of a barrel, or you were to go and look at the chambers, or seeing that bolts go into those barrel extensions and there's no contacts because there's no peening, because we're not planning for the first 100 rounds out of the box. I'm building that gun for the next 10,000 or 20,000 or whatever that is. And so if someone handed me a rifle without a single identifiable thing on there, there's a few things I would immediately go and look at, and I can tell you the give a shit factor that went into whoever made that rifle. And I can tell you right now that if you go to your local gun store and I were to give you just a list of stuff mind you, before Sons Liberty became a more prolific brand, the first 3 years we spent servicing other rifles, thousands and thousands of other people's rifles, entire fleets for departments. We started out as just armorers, really. And I got to see behind the curtain of everything that made. I can tell you who makes every part for every company, and out of industry etiquette, I have to bite my tongue a lot, but
Sure.
Just like what you just said, you have to bite your tongue quite a bit, right? So what makes a Sons Liberty rifle? Number one is an insanely high performance standard that we actually meet. And then the give a shit that goes into making that rifle. And then finally, you can't distinguish it from the product, but the end user support. The fact that if that rifle is destroyed by stupidity, we cover that. If that rifle gets taken for evidence in a justified use of force scenario, we cover that. That is part of the deal. So you have I believe, the highest performing rifle built, with consistency, whether I don't care when it was bought or where it was bought. If you were to go and look through these checklists of things that are important to me, they all have it. There's consistency against large sample sizes. That's hard to do. It's very hard to maintain quality as you scale, right? But we've done that. So performance, like the give a shit, the materials, tolerances, all that. And then finally, it's backed by a company. There's nothing like us. There's no company in the gun industry quite like us that stands by the customer with the same tenacity that we do. And I'm very proud of that. the most compelling bit of evidence that we're not full of shit is the fact that we got here without a marketing budget. We got here through peer-to-peer recommendation and word of mouth. Like we didn't, we don't have the marketing. We historically we have not had. I mean, I had a cell phone and a sense of humor, and I was pretty decent at being able to explain, explain our products, and then of course, our community involvement. But at the end of the day, our growth is completely attributed to peer-to-peer recommendation. Someone who bought our rifle and like this thing actually does what they say it does, tells somebody else, and then all of a sudden you're in 14 countries, all 50 states, hundreds of agencies, and now the highest levels of our DoD, and that was done through really, people telling other people you should check this out. And the only people that I really see a ton of criticism from are people that have never actually shot the rifle, interact with the brand, or understand specs and performance. So luckily for me, they don't really move the needle. And Nate gave me a ton of confidence sometimes a while back about how to, not really give a shit to it's the man in the arena, right? And then Nate embodies that, and that was one of our first conversations, and it was profound. And that's poor Nate didn't know his fate was sealed at that point.
He's so screwed.
When anybody sees a lever gun, they think of their grandpa's old dusty 1895 Winchester. This ain't that.
We've got the Glock switch for you.
This is huge.
Yeah, for you.
A lot of guys ask me, does size matter? And I'm sorry to say, yeah, it does. With silencers.
Every cop wants to be there to save the day, but the reality is we're not going to be there. Everybody becomes their own first responder.
I'm a competition shooter, blah-dee-dee-bah-dee-dee-yar-dee-dee-yar. What does that mean?
When I saw that, I was like, I gotta send this. What is f***ing pronouns? This is not English class. Why all of a sudden are we so concerned with grammar?
Whether you're a gun owner or just someone who's interested in how our rights are being protected, this is a development worth discussing.
Did you guys know that that's what they were trying to do? Take our and put it on Mars? I had no idea.
If Democrats want to fight for people breaking the laws, Americans are done with that bull crap.
I want to jump in on that because like you said, not a lot of marketing budget, especially from the time you started around 2012 to now. Like the AR-15 market it's a saturated market. Everybody and their dog makes an AR-15. You can buy them anywhere from $300 to $10,000, and there is a lot of as big as it can be for the firearms industry. There's a lot of big industry out there that you're competing with. A lot of firearms pedigree, centuries of pedigree making firearms, even in some of your biggest competitors. And so to be able to be to rise to be the fat that's rising to the top of the cream amongst all those players says a lot about the quality of the product. So hats off to you guys.
Yeah. So Nate, I was going to ask Mike what product you guys are most proud of now, but I want to ask you that question because I want to ask you, your, boots on the ground, plus or minus 6-7 months. You've been doing your thing, and you've talked a little bit about why Sons of Liberty was a great fit for you, but what product are you most excited about right now?
So without a doubt, the product that I'm most proud of would be the Mark 1, which is the most recent product line that's been introduced. It's the brainchild of Mike, and I think I guess what I would say about what makes the Sons rifle different, and I think it's manifests itself with the Mark 1 is that when Mike in particular, but I think it's a philosophy and a core value for Sons of Liberty is not just listening to our customers and trying to placate them, but actually taking their feedback and incorporating into our weapon systems to be able to make better and better rifles every day. And when you're fortunate enough to have certain clients who use rifles in very austere conditions and in different spots, and they work them very, very hard. Their feedback can be incredibly valuable. And so, with the Mark I in particular, incorporates a lot of end user feedback during its development cycle, right? You're nothing sort of untoward here. I mean, these guys are telling everybody what they need. Mike and team just happen to listen to them very, very carefully, and then made changes. So what are some things that matter, to a professional end user? The obvious things, right? Okay, accuracy and durability. And what does accuracy mean for a fighting carbine? It's actually, in our case, it's sub MOA, which is pretty extraordinary for an AR, platform, gun. On top of that, but that's just table stakes, really. Then it comes down to, material, and then also, how about rail rigidity? How rigid is this whole thing? So when I'm putting a lot of weight is it going to flex on me? Am I flexing this thing? And actually change POI because I'm really leaning into a barricade, or I've got a lot of visual augmentation systems mounted up on that rail, and some of that stuff shifts because I don't have the rail rigidity that I need. So the lockup system in that gun in particular was measured objectively to be the most rigid system of any that were tested in for one of these particular contracts that that we're talking about. So there's that. And then durability, of course, like, well, how long can I shoot this barrel and still achieve that without any change in performance characteristics to it? And with standard barrels, we're like getting double the life with the proprietary rifling, the polygonal rifling that we're using with some of the chrome lined, and then the RMOD, those numbers start to escalate pretty high up. So I would say the Mark I, and I'm only touching on just a handful of some of the things that went into that gun. I know, Mike fired it in his swimming pool. Wasn't a
video of that
swimming pool test.
It was more of I think a curiosity from the end user than necessarily a firm requirement. But anyway, there's a lot that went into it. But that gun. That's the one that I'm most proud of. I was actually just this past week, I was out at a place called Hat Creek, which is in Idaho. It's a long-range training facility. There's a guy there named Brian Morgan, who's just an absolute stud. And so we got to tag along with some professional, real professional long-range shooters. And I was out there with Sean Murphy on our team shooting our Mark I. It's a 14.5-inch gun, the one we brought out with us. Again, we were out there shooting with these guys who were shooting Accuracy International bolt guns. Okay. So, and we're keeping up. Doing some pretty extraordinary things from a distance perspective and accuracy perspective with a very light, very, very light platform shooting 5.56. Right. And so, it's by and far and away the product I'm most proud of. I'm confident to put it in anyone's hands and say, put it up against any rifle out there in the market and objectively test it on any metric that you think is important. And I guarantee it will outperform, all of them.
So I'm glad, Nate, you said the Mark I. I'm looking at a live update right now of one of our mutual friends, Nate, John Keys, and I'm going to read this caption. And so this wasn't planned, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. So they posted a video of an MK1 car pistol. And it talks about all of the stuff on the build. And there's a comment, but this comment says, if you think that's a good rifle, go look at Noveski. And their whole reasoning behind this is, they've been in the game longer.
So first, I will say that John Noveski was a personal hero of mine, and I'm really fortunate that I got to talk to him. Before he passed, he was truly ahead of his time. And what again, in the same philosophy that I approach the rifle is, you start out with a performance standard, and then you work it backwards. How do you achieve that, right? Noveski's no slouch, man. That's a good rifle. What I will say is that, and to allude to some of the stuff Nate said when he was talking about some of the features of that rifle, precision, reliability, and endurance. Well, every rifle being considered for some of these programs starts with that. I mean, that's how you get to the table, right?
Yeah.
That's right. So, no, granted, it's a very short list. It's a very short list of companies that even deserve a chance at arming our country's finest, right? That actually build those kind of performance rifles. But then you start getting into form factor, carryability. You start getting into the future of where small arms is going. And I can honestly say that Sons of Liberty is very far ahead. I have to be careful how I phrase this, but Sons of Liberty is very far ahead on small arms tech for where things are heading. We're about to enter a renaissance period. The entire gun industry, okay, that is, in my opinion, as important. That it's going to have a milestone, check mark on the timeline of firearms, as important as the repeating rifle, as rifling, as a cartridge, so on. What's about to happen next in terms of increased lethality of the systems is exciting stuff. And I'm proud to say that where we're going, there is no textbook to study from. We're writing the book. So, I mean, I don't, whatever came before us, yeah, I mean, obviously, like any other industry and anything that's any innovation, luckily we're standing on the shoulders of giants. There's no doubt. I would say we're standing on the shoulders of guys like John Noveski. Hope we make him proud, but where we're going and what we've done and where they handed us that football and where we're running to, I'm sorry, man, but it's very far ahead of a lot of stuff that's out there. I'm not going to say any names in particular, but what we're doing with barrel tech, we're looking at different geometries for different things, different features. Guns been able to do things they've never been able to do. Never. And if you were to try to do some of these things with legacy systems, that gun would die very, very fast. And I can honestly tell you that our guns don't. And like I said, we're writing the book as we go. And I have to be. I don't mean to be vague, but some of the programs and stuff that we're playing with, they're sensitive.
But let's talk about law enforcement, Mike, and who do you rely on, and who do you rely on outside the building for feedback?
Yeah, dude, I've had the privilege of teaching almost 2,000 police armorers in the last 4 or 5 years. I spent more time on the road than home teaching classes to civilian and law enforcement armorers, and getting to see kind of, and it was, it's encouraging and disappointing at the same time to see what some of these guys are issued to carry. Because whoever made that decision, in some cubicle somewhere, that doesn't have to do the job, that's not the one that's responding and, running towards the gunfire, they're handing them the cheapest rifle that, that was in the bid. And then you see some agencies that clearly give a shit about, equipment and training and stuff like that. The asks of society on the police are insane. Everything from disciplining your 7-year-old who won't go to bed, to domestic issues, to picking up a body that they found in an alley, all the way up to those horrific calls where somebody is actively trying to kill as many people in a mall or a school or something as possible. That's a hard job, that's tough, man. To me, I'm very proud to know that, I live in San Antonio. We armed the San Antonio Police Department Patrol. We armed the San Antonio Police Department SWAT. We armed Bexar County. We armed every surrounding municipality. And to me, I was going to win those deals because my family lives here. My family also goes to malls, and my family goes to church, and my family goes to school, my children. And I want I think San Antonio, I want these officers who are, I think, some of the best in the country. I want them to respond with the best equipment available, especially if it's my kid in that mall.
Hell yeah.
And I'm sure every dad in the country would feel the same way. If every dad in the country could do what I do and build one of the best service rifles out there and arm their own community with it, they would do it.
So I think you guys have built a great name on perfecting a platform and a line of rifles in 5.56.
Oh shit!
Are there any considerations?
This is an AK guy. This is a freaking AK guy. Sorry, guys. I apologize.
I was gonna ask about. Are there any considerations for other calibers or other platforms, even?
All I'm gonna say is I think you'll be very excited.
All right, I'll take that. I'll take that. I mean, hey, in the pursuit of the world's finest fighting rifle, you got to consider a couple of things, you know.
But Matt, yes, there will be many additional caliber options coming, including some that you might not think would be customary.
Yeah, I mean, and even in the AR platform, there's tons of caliber options. You've got AR-10 as a possibility. So, I mean, I guess I was kind of asking about AKs.
Yeah,
the AR-10 stuff, but I mean,
No, but we listen. So we currently offer rifles in 308, the 6.5 Creedmoor.
Right.
We do build 6 ARC. The 6 Max is an incredible cartridge. I mean, we were the guys that really launched out and pushed that in the market. We were like the first adopters of that, and now that rifle, that cartridge, what it's doing at quantified performance and in a lot of other places is truly impressive. That's a cool cartridge. But 6 ARC, you cannot deny how well the 6 ARC is doing out there. I mean, ballistically, it's an incredible cartridge, and we have a 6 ARC, and we're continuing to do research and development on how to just keep making things better. 308, same thing. I mean, like right now, we're moving pretty quick on a lot of different things. We have some neat stuff in the pipeline, but yeah, I mean, 5.56 is our kind of like the bread and butter, if you will. But 300 Blackout, these are all cartridges that we currently offer. I'm just excited. Again, before Nate strangles me, the suite of technology that was developed during the Mark 1, okay, it was not just a rifle. It was an entire suite of technology. And the brand is going through a tech refresh, and Nate's saying he's most proud of the Mark 1 as far as being our product. To me, the thing that I'm most proud of is honestly the barrel technology that we're doing.
I've heard just a hair about this, and dude, this is nuts.
So the barrel technology that we're working on, and to me is and let me just say, when I say the entire suite of technology, I'm talking about there were several things that were developed simultaneously that had different use cases or that were optimized for one particular environment or another or whatever. We didn't just throw that stuff away. It's all here. And we're waiting for the right time to start pushing some stuff out. I know that kind of goes beyond the caliber question, but it's going to translate to large frame, small frame, anything in between. And and again, one last thing to say is that as there are cartridges that are emerging right now that there are no good rifle options for,
right?
And we're definitely looking into that. We're pushing forward fast, a lot faster than people probably think or know.
I did want to ask, you had mentioned collaborations. Like, are there any other big collabs planned for this year? Anybody you're working really closely with that you want to shout out?
All I'll say to that is that the brands and companies and entities that we work with, they're known for like next level quality. They have the same ethos. They believe in the same thing. They have the dedication to the end user, and so if we work with somebody, it's because of all of those good reasons, and the chemistry aligns. And yeah, I think,
I guess on that note, actually, Mike, you just reminded me there is one really important one. I was thinking so much hardware when you asked that question, Matt. I was just really thinking about kind of hardware, or what I call hardware. We have been doing more and more with Born Primitive Tactical, and Bruno and the team over there, and we have a massively overlapping customer base with them. They make an incredible product. Ethos is the same. We have a big range day actually that we're doing together with them in Moyock, North Carolina on September 4th. This year will be sort of invite only, mostly for Ellie and other folks, but we'd love to see you guys there if you can make it.
Awesome. Thank you. And
that'll just grow. That's just going to grow there. That's at the old Blackwater facility.
Right.
So it's going to be a pretty cool deal. But yeah, so Born Primitive would be the one that we are actively doing a lot with, and we're supporting each other as we.
That's a super solid crew, man, and like the way they approach their product, the way they approach their customer, man, it's rare, and it's rare, and it's super familiar to us. So
you guys are going to the firearms dealers. That's who you're pursuing right now, and for those of our listeners that do not have a dealer in their area that are looking for a son's firearm, give me some suggestions on how they can obtain such creatures.
Okay, so we can always edit this out, Mike, if you don't like it, but I would welcome any of your listeners who have their local gun store that they love. This is the spot. These are the guys. Who take care of us, who carry, who understand, who would be great partners. My email is real simple. It's just Nate, Nate at solgw.com.
Oh, yeah.
Nate at solgw.com. Anybody has a dealer or a recommendation or any issues with Mike's cell phone, you can hit me. You can hit me there. So you got two points of contact on getting to reach out. But that is, Mike, it's a really good question because that's something that I asked. Like I asked you, who are the dealers? Who are the good dealers? Where should we be going? So Mike Mihalski and I toured Florida. We drove up and down Florida. We met with a bunch of folks that I knew from prior life that would be well suited to be carrying Sons rifles. Texas is obviously our backyard, but outside, that we welcome, input and feedback because we are actively looking to grow our dealer base of direct gun stores. But we're looking to do it with those folks who build relationships with customers, who kind of treat their folks right. We're not looking to do it with folks who are transactional, or who are just trying to compete on price or otherwise. We're going to support them, and we're going to look for their support of us to really understand our brand.
So we've had Nate on the show, so we know his answers, but we like to ask all of our guests, Mike. As gun guys, we kind of judge each other by what we like, and when there's some gentle ribbing and making fun of people based on their choices. So we want to know, Mike, your top 5 guns. It's not the zombie apocalypse, it's not World War III or anything crazy like that, but the NFA doesn't matter, cost of ammunition doesn't matter. What 5 guns are you taking for the rest of your life?
Okay.
You only get 5 guns.
Okay. All right.
Forever.
I apologize to the AR community, but you have to tip your hat. You have to tip your hat to one of the most prolific and just awesome rifles ever built, the AK-47.
Yes. Let's go.
That people think that the atomic weapon, the atomic bomb, is the deadliest weapon ever, and they're like, no. The AK-47,
it is.
So no, I think that's an awesome rifle. The Ruger 1022. The Ruger 1022 is a rifle that I think that like if I really was going into the apocalypse, like one of those takedown Ruger 1022s would be, you would never starve.
You could put 1,000 rounds in your pocket.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's just it's one of those staple guns that like honestly should be in like every gun safe in the country, right?
Yeah.
The Glock 19, or the Glock 19. I got I carry a factory Glock 19. I have not upgraded anything. To me, I think the engineers over at Glock know how to build a pistol. And as far as it's one of the most idiot-proof, simple, mechanically robust, insane guns that you could buy, is a Glock 19. What's really cool about that is I was actually having this conversation last night. Think of any other product on the market, if in any category, that would like operate predictably fine like 15,000 times in a row. I mean, I don't think that you could operate your toaster 15,000 times or 20,000 times in a row. I don't think the ignition on your vehicle would turn over 20,000 times. I mean, like without some type of hiccup or something. But routinely, you could see a Glock do that. Factory Glock. I mean, like I think they set the bar for it. A lot of other companies that have come after them in terms of striker fired pistol. So I'd have to say the MP5 SD, for no other reason than like that was like my childhood gun. I grew up on that gun.
It's freaking cool, yeah.
I mean, there's a cool factor to it that like
you got one more.
Probably the Winchester Model 70.
All right, yeah.
The Winchester Model 70, man, like the old, the pre-Garcia stuff, dude. I think like that was a really robust and well-built action. And I mean, like that there's no expiration date on that thing. It would, the rifle that I hunt with is like a pre-64, and there's no reason why my great grandkids couldn't hunt with it too.
Yeah. Amazing choices. I knew I was gonna like you, Mike. You do have great taste in firearms, my friend.
Hell yeah. Well, Matt, go ahead, man. Figure out where we can plug them and go ahead and close us out, brother.
All right. Nate, go ahead and take it. Let everybody know where they can find Sons of Liberty Gunworks.
Great. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that, Matt. So you can get us online at solgw.com online. You can get us there, and at your local gun store. Coming soon to more of those. We'll see y'all at the Goals event coming up here very soon at the XCal Guns Out TV Range Day on I think it's August 23rd, 24th. We'll be out there as well. You will be able to shoot our rifles there. And then if you check out our website and sign up for our email, you can see events that we're doing every week. We're at a dealer or doing an event where you can come shoot our rifles almost every weekend.
So on behalf of Mike and Nate from Sons of Liberty Gunworks, I'm Mike. He's Matt. We will catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.